Hello, everyone. My name is Moshe Nave, and welcome to today's SAP community call about SAP Integration Suite, CI/CD at Ferring. I would like to hand it over to my colleague Boris, and Nunu, you can go to the next slide. And Boris, my colleague, will introduce the concept of the call and the speakers.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Moshe, for the introduction. And yeah, very warm welcome from my side as well. And my name is Boris Tarska. I'm a product manager in the area of cloud and lifecycle management. And I'm especially in charge at SAP for the DevOps story around business technology platform. And yeah, not surprisingly, we see a lot of value that this more agile approach does bring. Also in SAP projects, that's the important aspect here as well. And yeah, when I engage with customers, I see them using it along all kinds of different projects, be it building extensions or cloud native apps, meaning we mainly focus so far on rather the classical development use cases. But we see also a lot of interest around using that more agile approach and yeah, benefiting from the values it does bring for the creation of application-specific content types. And here, of course, today we think especially of SAP Integration Suite content. And for that, at SAP, we are offering approaches, some building blocks, also for SAP Integration Suite. For example, we have our so-called Project Piper. That's an open source approach where we do provide a library of pipeline steps and other means that can be used to then build up a pipeline. And there are also blog posts around it, also in the SAP community, of course. But we also have an out-of-the-box offering with our pipeline as a service offering coming from the SAP Continuous Integration and Delivery Service, which really allows to come up with a running pipeline in minutes. But for us, it's also clear that, yeah, those are first steps, but yeah, maybe you need more. And now Ferring, our customer, came up with the excellent blog post series in SAP community, where I was very happy to see that. And of course, yeah, they also have gained a lot of attention with that. And then, yeah, to further spread the learnings they made and also to open up the discussion with you, the idea for this community call came up, and that's where we are today, right? So it's all about, first of all, again, learning again what Ferring did and what experience they made. And then based on that, yeah, having a whole discussions for which we have also a lot of experts here. Meaning, in the first part, Ferring will now outline their approach. Then, of course, we will also have time for questions to them. So if you have any questions or remarks or comments, we can also discuss that then after the presentation. And the third part will be that we will have an open discussion round with Nuno and Ricardo from Ferring, but also with a lot of experts from SAP, as you can see. Of course, yeah, we have experts from the CI/CD area. Here I can welcome Linda Siebert and Christoph Szymanski. So they are both working actually on the service and are really at the pulse of the whole CI/CD activities around SAP. We have also Milena Matul. She's a product manager from the SAP Integration Suite. And with that, we have also an expert around that kind of topics. And yeah, of course, I will also join. Goal is really to have later on an open discussion. So we hope that you will bring up a lot of questions to us or also come up with expectations you might have in that direction for CI/CD around SAP Integration Suite. So don't be shy. Hopefully you will come up with a lot of questions, and with your help, we can make that an engaging and rewarding event today, because we also depend on your input, and you can really make a difference and provide input to our development, how we shall evolve our offerings then also in the long run around CI/CD for SAP Integration Suite. But now, yeah, let's open up for the approach from Ferring. And again, very warm welcome to Nuno and Ricardo. Your stage, Ricardo.
Right. Thanks a lot, Boris, and thanks a lot, SAP, for this invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. So quickly, my name is Ricardo Pereira. I'm the Senior Manager for Data and Systems Integration at Ferring. And I would like to start saying that Nuno Pereira is the brain behind the CI/CD, and all credits goes to him. Nuno has done this work during his spare time on top of all he has at the moment, a little bit more than a year ago when we started a big SAP S4 implementation, and it's really thrilling to see what he has achieved together with the team in regards to this CI/CD that you will see. It's quite impressive. Now, quickly, a little bit about Ferring. So Ferring is a privately owned mid-size biopharmaceutical company based in Switzerland. So biopharmaceuticals are complex medicines made from living cells or organisms, right? And Ferring was originally founded in Malmö, Sweden in the 50s by Dr. Fredrik Paulsen and Dr. Eva Paulsen. Ferring has its own operating subsidiaries in nearly 60 countries and its products in 110 countries, quite spread around the world, as you can see. We have about 7,000 colleagues worldwide, and we have 3 large therapeutical areas where we have over 50 years developed new drugs. And our biggest area is reproductive medicine and maternal health. And this is our unique profile. We are the world leader in this area, developing drugs and improving the therapy with the reproductive obstetricians. So maternal health is definitely big in our agenda. The other 2 areas are gastroenterology and urology. In short, Ferring is a company that believes in the power of search and going where others did not go before to solve medical problems for patients, for our patients. That's why some of the first drugs to treat, for example, urological disease were developed 50 years ago in-house by Ferring, and they are still there, and still some are life-saving. So I invite you to visit our website, ferring.com, to know a little bit more about us. Now, a little bit about our team. So we are part of Ferring's global IT, and we offer a variety of integration services to all our IT departments and business. We have a team spread between US, India, and Europe. And in Europe, we are in Portugal, Switzerland, Germany, and Romania. And we are organized by integration platforms, integration patterns, as you can see. So we have a common hub where we have our principal integration architect as also a senior integration architect, Scrum Master. We have the newly formed enterprise integration platform, mainly powered by SAP Integration Suite. As a tech lead, we have Nuno Pereira here with us. We have also underneath solutions like API management, event mesh, on the category of messaging, of course, cloud integration, and then the DevOps underneath, right? We also have a team for ETL, so we are segregating a little bit between what's real-time needs, between non-real-time or more batch integration patterns. So we have ETL powered by Informatica, and there, yeah, so also integration architects, integration developers, data engineers, because as you might know, this area is quite tied to data, BI, analytics, etc. We also have Beanstalk, an MFT for the management file transfer. This is our middleware that is mainly operating the legacy, mediating the flows between our legacy systems. We are in a transition to SAP Integration Suite. So SAP Integration Suite as the middleware of reference for our SAP S4 implementation, but already being extended for non-SAP integration as well, and taking over from Beanstalk. So it's already classified as a deprecated solution on our side, and we are preparing a migration from Beanstalk into into Integration Suite. We are also preparing a new team for RPA, robotic and process automation, that should be launched in the second half of this year. And that's pretty much it about the team. I will now put the focus on the second stream that we see here, Enterprise Integration Platform, especially on the cloud integration and also API management, where we have our CI/CD that Nuno is going to cover for you guys. So yeah, stay tuned and over to you, Nuno.
Okay, thank you, Ricardo. So first, I would like to thank our audience that took some time to join this session. So also warm welcome from my side. My name is Nuno Pereira. I'm currently leading our Enterprise Integration Platform team that Ricardo just presented. And I'm responsible for all our integrations running via SAP Integration Suite. So for the next half an hour, I would like to give you some overview about our custom DevOps solution that we have created for Integration Suite. And by the end, I hope we can also collect some feedback and exchange ideas on areas that we can all improve. And on this presentation, we just selected the most interesting ideas for our DevOps solutions to show. So it's just a small fragment because of the time constraints, and we don't want to make you bored as well. So without further ado, the first topic in our agenda is the project motivation. So what led to this initiative? Also the challenges and goals. So our team has currently around 10 developers, and they are working all over the world on different countries and different time zones. So we really need to establish some governance on our development and also on the support process as well. So main goal here was really to establish that process that can run on a long run and could save some effort time, some development effort time without compromising the quality measures we want to implement, and while also keeping the auditability required by the pharma industry. So you can see that the idea is really to automate as much as possible and gain benefit with it, and creating also a process that the team can easily follow. So we can go into the technical solution. So we make use of Jenkins as a main platform to trigger our integration, our DevOps pipelines, let's say. So we use Jenkins as the scheduling tool. We use Git for source code repository, where we store our artifacts. We use Crucible for code review. We use Jira as not only the release management tool, but also to plan our sprints. And we use KeePass as our password managing tool. And finally, we use Postman as a shared repository across the team to run most of our integrations. So on this slide, you can see a very high level architecture of what we currently have. So on one side, we have the BTP, which inside has the cloud integration. And inside, we can see the integration content OData API. So we heavily rely on the OData API available for Integration Suite. And on the middle, we can see Jenkins, which is then our main orchestrator, let's say. We also have Git, our source code repository. We have references to Crucible for code review process. And we have here Jira for the release management part. We will start now with the Binaries backup pipeline, which is this flow that you see right here. And that also does a meaningful part here for the release management. So first of all, what was the motivation to have the CPI Binaries backup running? So when I joined Ferring about 2 years ago, I started to check some interesting documentation online about CI/CD and some receipts available online. and we were trying to POC some of them. And at the exact same time, we had one of our instances deleted by mistake, and all the artifacts there were gone. So the first pipeline we decided then to implement was really this CPI binaries backup, where the idea could be to store on Git every artifact available, so packages, iFlows, and everything that we could back up basically via the APIs available. And that's where we started. So this pipeline, we try to download the package file, but if it's in draft, you cannot download it. And then you need to download the individual artifacts. So at the time of development, around 2 years ago, the only artifacts available for download were iFlows and value mappings. Nowadays, we have a different story, so you can also export message mappings and many other artifacts that are now available there. Also on these, so we create a Git repository for all the packages we have on CPI. And you can see we have that per environment. So we have 4 environments, and we run on a daily basis this extraction of all the binaries available. And upon transport, so we are using CTMS, and I will come into details later on that. But when we transport, we generate an mtar file, and we also commit it to Git, so we keep track of what is being transported. So you can see below that some more recent artifacts are not yet included on this. What we also do on these as part of the daily job is to take iFlow screenshots that we can use later on for documentation purposes. So we use Selenium to log into each environment of the cloud integration. And goes into each iFlow, every single iFlow, and takes a snapshot of it and stores it on a file system. And we serve that file system so that it's available to be consumed by other services. What we also have is an option to export all the externalized parameters in a CSV format. So we have around, at the moment, we have around 300 iFlows in production. And we try to maintain the most configuration possible so that we don't need to really change the iFlows when we need to change some configuration. And we do that via the external parameters. And upon release management, it was really hard for us to really go into every single iFlow and see what is configured there. So we created this extraction tool also per environment where we collect all the packages, all the iFlows, all the external parameter keys, and all the external parameter values. And we save that as well on Git. That also helps us on the auditing of most of the changes that we do, since we can see on which day a change was done, and we can see what was the previous value. And so it's really nice. And it also, we developed it in CSV so that we can also share it with our business analysts so that they can also fill this CSV file with some changes, because this is not only a read-only operation. At this point, I'm just talking about the export of it, but it's also, we also developed the capability to then apply these configuration changes in mass per environment as well. What we also have is we back up the list of all certificates also per environment, and this can also be audited by the team later on. Some other features that we also have is we synchronize All our security materials, they are stored on KeePass. They are added into Git as well, so that we also have a track of the changes of the security materials, and they are synchronized on a daily basis into this respective environments. And upon inconsistencies, we report it via email, because inconsistencies can be found if the same credential is changed on the environment and on KeePass at the same time, for instance. And for this, we trigger email notifications. As I was mentioning just before, we also have the capability to apply these external parameters that we extract on a daily basis in a masked mode. So we have two flags or two possibilities here. One is we just have the same format as the export external parameters that you saw before, but we have a different file to apply these config changes. We have the option to do, and this one just applies the configuration but does not deploy anything, and we have the to-do deploy. So what we do with that is we apply the external parameters to all our iFlows that are on the list. We collect the changed iFlows, and then we deploy everything in the end so that it becomes active, let's say. What we also have is some external parameters for controlling the logs and the traces, and we have a report that is running and is showing which of our packages have the traces enabled, and which ones also have it incorrectly configured, let's say. Besides that, what we also do is on this job is, since we are collecting all the artifacts, so all the package artifacts that are available, we are then synchronizing that into Jira in the form of components. So you see here the package name. The idea behind this is that we are using the Jira as our release management tool, and we can then have an association between the user story that was worked on and the CPI package that was used and the release that we want to handle. This becomes very handy because in the end, we can try to automate also this part to then move one release in one go when we can identify the packages involved on that. Another thing we have is the certificate expiration. So we try to check the certificates that are available on every single environment we have on the certificate section of the cloud integration. But we also try to check it on the service keys on BTP. And if we find something, some certificate that is about to expire, we also send it to our basis team and to our team so that we can start working on that. We have different thresholds depending if it's a certificate from BTP or one from cloud integration. In the end, we also have like a consolidation tool, which you can see print here, where the CSV of the external parameters I showed previously is being the source of this information. And it's then being built in a way that we can create this UI and show to our functional teams which interfaces do we have, where they are connected into, which external parameters do they have, and options such as the scheduling and all sort of information. So our business analysts, they can check this tool and see how it's configured. Okay, so we discussed about this route here, and we are now talking about the sync pipeline. So after this binaries backup pipeline being developed, our next logical step that we think was, okay, so now let's implement a pipeline per CPI package. So the idea was that we wanted to have some governance and run the same checks for every single package. And therefore, we created this sync CPI Jenkins. What is doing is basically fetching all the packages available on the dev environment, and we create a package pipeline for each of these packages, so that in the end, we can run checks for the same kind of checks for every single package in an isolated way. And we can report that errors to the responsible developer that is working on this specific package. What we also do is we store also on Git the source code, so the iflows in an expanded way. So they are just zip files. We unzip them and we add them into Git, into their own separate package repository, let's say. All of this happens in an automatic way. So the developer that starts working on a new integration, it doesn't need to know about any of this stuff. So at the end of the day, we run this pipeline in an automated way, and it's fetching all the packages we have. It's automatically creating the Git repo if needed. It's automatically creating a package pipeline if needed, and it's automatically running all the checks and notifying the responsible developer also in an automated way. So the developer will be notified if he's not conforming to our development guidelines. You can see it here. So what we have is then on Jenkins, we aggregated into business areas, let's say. And you can see it here as some of these package pipelines that were automatically generated, the respective Jenkins file that serve the pipelines, and they all follow the same Jenkins file template. So you see it here that we just have some placeholders that we automatically replace, but then all of them follow the same rules and the same checks, and that helps us create some consistency and the process to be followed. So now we can go into the details of each package pipeline. So what does it do? And for that, this would be the route that we are following. So for each package, when this package pipeline runs, we read the CPI package that is there. We commit the source code into Git. We then check if fisheye, which is a part of also Crucible for the code reviews, is available, a repository for it if it's available. If not, we create one. We link it to the Git repo. We also create a project in case it does not exist. So these are concepts of a Crucible code review tool. We also create a review in draft in case no review exists. And then we have all the files that were changed into this review. The main idea behind all this automation is that we never have files that were unreviewed. So if no review is open, we just add all the unreviewed files to that bucket list, so that once we want to, we do a review on this project, we review all the changes that were not reviewed yet. So here you can see some more details about how this works. So we have a Git repository, and then we have an associated Crucible repository that is synchronized in an automated fashion. We also have here an example of how does a code review look like on Crucible. So this looks very handy, especially because you can see the changes from one commit to the other. And again, to the developer, all these process happens in the background. So all it needs to know is that at the end of the day, these Crucible code review are always updated to the latest code available on Git, and this Git is also automatically populated, so they don't need to know all these inner details. So then we have the part of the source code. So we download all the CPI packages, as I was telling, and then we explode these exported package zip file into the individual artifacts there, and we commit that into Git. That is what you see here. And then we wanted to create some checks, some validation, automatic validations. And I was investigating online, and we found this CPI lint. This was created by Morten, and I decided to also extend this tool that is available to also include the possibility to register our custom rules that you can see here. I'm not going into the details. I think it's too much. You can also check it on the blog in more detail what each rule is really doing. But this helped us to perform the same checks for all the packages so that we can see if they are following our naming guidelines and if they are using some discouraged pattern. Also part of this same package pipeline, we do the documentation. So for that, what do? We try to check if we do have message mapping files there. If so, we generate an HTML for the message mapping. We make use of a Java application that is parsing the message mapping file and generating a ND HTML with syntax highlighting and also with indentation. This is also covered on the blog. And in the end, we also generate a README markdown file for the Git repo that we are checking, and we commit that into Git. So at the end of the day, you can also check it. So you have the details here of the message mapping output in HTML format. You can see the indentation and the syntax highlighting, and you can also see here how does it look like a README file that was automatically generated, including the screenshot that we just described on the first step, as well as the message mappings HTML file. So all of this is done automatically on a daily basis if updated. Another very important part is the testing. So we focus mainly on unit testing because for end-to-end testing is a bit more complicated because we always depend on external factors. So what we wanted to have is a way to at least do unit testing. So what we decided to do is that on the integration flows, the developer had the possibility to include there on the resources Groovy files dedicated to unit testing. If we identify those files, then we are able to run them. So all the classes that have JUnit annotated methods, we consider that they are suitable for testing, and we execute these tests. What we also do is we are using XSpec as a way to test XSL files. So there's also a possibility that developers can also add that into the resource sections when they want to test XSLTs. We execute all of that, and then we generate Jenkins JUnit reports, as you can see here. And we also send email notifications for the responsible developer for failures we identify on the tests. So you can see one example here of a very simple test. So it's just a unit test, and it's just doing some string utils validations. And this is included when we run it then at the end of the day. And you can see here some example from XSpec. The more tricky one was for testing the message mapping unit testing. So we thought that this is the most critical part of the integration flows that we had. And there was nothing available to really do message mapping unit testing in an automated fashion. So what we ended up doing is we, in case we find a message mapping with this specific naming guideline, we know that we have some setup to do. So what we need to do is we extract these message mappings that are on the iFlows. We deploy a dynamic iFlow just with the message mapping under tests and all the dependencies, so the schemas, ADMX, WSDL, and so on. This generates also an endpoint, a unique endpoint, and we call this dynamic endpoint as just with the message mapping that we want to test. And we assert that the results of this execution are the ones that are expected here. Then we have a teardown phase where we just undeploy and delete the generated dynamic iFlows that were just used for the sake of the tests. One thing we just nowadays we don't do this step any longer, because if the iFlows don't change and we have 300, it doesn't make sense that we are creating this setup on a daily basis every day if nothing changes. So we try to reuse what we have if nothing changed. In the end, we have also email notification to the developers once we find issues with that. Finally, we have also enhanced our transports. So we are using the CTMS for doing the transports, but we want us to create some control layer on our side on top of it, and that's why we don't use CTMS directly. We use the Jenkins respective pipelines to transport it and to forward it to the next environments. The advantage here is that we can have a lot of control and checks before we do the transport itself. So we can check the change, the service now change request status to see if it's on the proper status to move. We can do backups of what is the current package on the next environment that we are transporting. We can do a backup of the external parameters using that functionality that I described early. And we have all the controls. So we can get the binary file, we create an MTAR on this Jenkins pipeline, and we commit that into Git, the MTAR, and we create also a Git tag for this so that we can later on import it again, this MTAR, into the queues. Because CTMS has also a retention period of 30 days, if I'm not mistaken. And after that time, we should be able to import again an MTAR from the Git tag. We can then upload this MTAR into CTMS. So we make use of the CTMS OData API for that purpose, and we can then really do the transport itself. So we create backups on the file system of the zip file and the external parameters. And we also have an option to apply automatically parameters into the next environment using the CSV that I also described earlier. So with that, we also have the capability to then so we have the capability to then do rollbacks into a previously transported timestamp, and we do that by simply reapplying the previous backed up zip file and also applying what we have as previously external parameters, and with that we kind of are on the safe side, and we can re-import it again. So we have custom pipelines for transports, we have for the forward, and we also have one for rolling back transports, as you can see. So for forwarding transports, we check the latest one available, and we also check the status of the service now change request. And I think that's pretty much it. I think we are through. So I think we are good to go to the Q&A, open discussion. I will stop sharing now.
Great. Thanks a lot, Ricardo and Nuno. That is really amazing. I mean, what you did, and thanks a lot for sharing that in full detail. We have quite some questions in place, so let's just bring them up, and then we can also open up the round later on. But first, concerning your presentation, there was a question concerning if you can share more details about how the backup automation does work. I assume that's mainly scripted as part of your pipeline, right? There's a question if there's a technology used for the backup, but I assume it's rather.
No, it's just a Groovy script that is just collecting the zip files and adding them into Git.
Yeah, right. Thanks. And then next question was, so kudos also to all participants that came up with questions in the chat. Thanks a lot for that. Really appreciate it. If Ferring has been using Piper commands for this scenario.
No, actually not. So we inspired ourselves in the receipts that were available online. There is a blog from Axel, I believe, describing these receipts, and we just followed that. But when we started to implement this, it was like a POC and a playground, and it was not really something that we were thinking about that it would reach this maturity level. So we did not implement it using Piper. What I did then on my spare time was to set it up on Schema, and a Docker image using Piper, and then incorporating our receipts there. So it's not really that hard to make it work using Piper. But nowadays, as we run it, it's not using Piper commands.
Right. Thanks a lot for the clarification here. But again, I mean, as mentioned, I mean, nevertheless, it's worth taking a look at what is available today, right? There was also a question if we can also come up with a live demo. We did decide against it for this session here because, as you might have seen, I mean, Nuno outlined really a lot of details which would have been very hard to all cover that in a live demo. And yeah, for timing purposes, just Nuno, if I'm right, we don't have one in the community either, right? As far as I remember. I mean, we have, of course, the sophisticated blog post series, but maybe in the course of upcoming events, you can think about demo or something like that, if you would be interested and willing, of course. Then there was
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. So yeah, looking forward to that. In terms of, there was also a remark, good if SAP provides APIs to generate documentation for message mapping against current option of manual CSV download. That is not in place yet, is it? I mean, you right now have to do it manually, right? In terms of here the documentation generation, as far as I know, right?
So right now we do it with our custom tools, so with our custom Java tool, but nothing really standard on that.
Yeah. Okay, those were the questions, especially now for your approach. And of course, thanks a lot again for that. And we saw that it's very sophisticated and that you also evolved it, right? And came up with that, what started as a small project just grew by time. And of course, from SAP point of view, we could just say, okay, fine, we have a very good best practice. If you want to benefit from that, just do it like Ferring. But also we see, of course, you need some efforts to set it up, right? And also to keep it up running. And from that point of view, of course, we are keen on, also lowering here the entry barrier and gaining much of what you have experienced and learn from that also in terms of the offerings we can provide from SAP. Okay, sorry, there was also another question we can about Java app as per of architecture. Okay. That's another. How are you exporting externalized parameters from cloud integration? Oh, sorry, that was another question here. How you can export those externalized parameters if there's an.
Yeah, so there's an cloud integration data API available for that, but it only exports it, I think, in a single way, so not in a bulk way. So what I developed was initially a CAP service to do that, but then we just do it in a regular Node.js service, an Express one. And what we do is simply to fetch all the packages using the existing API as well. We fetch all the iFlows and then we go one by one. So it's a very quite expensive operation, I would say. So we try to minimize it as most as we can, but we would benefit if there was an option to export it in a bulk way, let's say, without having this workaround.
Thanks a lot for the explanation. But I would say that we now open up the round, right? And also welcome Milena, Linda, and Christoph into the round, because here we have also some questions that go beyond the single scenario, now rather go into the future direction. First of all, there was a question, and that's rather going into your direction, Milena. If there are any plans from cloud integration or integration suite side to have an option to enable a direct push of artifacts to the repository instead of using Jenkins or other pipeline scripts. As far as I know, that's not the case, right? At least on the near-term roadmap, is it? Or
hello, everybody. Yeah, so unfortunately, this is not the case currently, but we are open to discuss this. So if you have further feedback, please feel free to get in touch with us. And yeah, if there, yeah, that's it.
Thanks a lot, Milena. And I assume, Nuno, that would also help, or would have helped you, right? I mean, no question about it. I assume.
No question about it, yes.
Yeah,
so
okay.
we only implemented this way because we have no other way, let's say. So.
Right. I mean, that's also feedback we get from other cases. So I think it is worth to further discuss that. Then Linda and Christoph, there was a question also concerning the continuous integration delivery service, whether there's a plan to provide an option to schedule a job that takes more than one iFlow.
Yeah. So hi everybody. So that's a common request. We're looking into that. In general, with what we offer within SAP Continuous Integration and Delivery, we are currently evaluating how we evolve the offering there. We've seen at Ferring what is possible, what can be done. So that is a great inspiration also for us, what customers are doing. And also what obviously are requirements there. And one of those requirements definitely is to handle, like in a monorepo approach, multiple flows within one repository. We're not sure yet, so it's not on the external roadmap, but we're definitely considering that. No.
Thanks, Christoph. Yeah, that is helpful. And of course, here also, again, the request, if you have any requirements in that direction towards CI/CD or Cloud Transport Management Service, you can also reach out, of course, afterwards. Then there was a question concerning partner directory, if that can be transported as far as I get it. As far as I know, that's not the case, but I have to further look into that because I do not know partner directory by heart, to be honest. But yeah, otherwise, so. Yeah, right. That's also my understanding. Okay, thanks, Nuno, that you can support it. Then there was a question also again to you, Nuno. Are you using Integration Advisor in your development?
Yes, we are. So we recently started to use the trading partner management for the B2B scenarios, and that's one integral part of it to reference some MIGs and MEGs from the Integration Advisor. So we are using that. Not yet in prod, but we are using it. We are coding it at the moment, or more configuring at the moment on the trading partner management. Yes.
Excellent. Thanks a lot for the clarification. Okay, as far as I got it, the other questions have already been answered in the chat. So for us, of course, it would be interesting now, what are the expectations? I mean, we heard about the integration of Integration Suite directly into Git. That would help. Are there other thoughts about if this might be useful, if you would also see value here, if you would be willing to also invest into that? And yeah, what are the requirements or use cases you want to address? I see there's another statement here in the chat. Are you then not using script collections, share message mappings, artifacts yet? No, that's again to you, I assume, right?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Are you then not using script collections, share message mappings, artifacts yet?
No, we use script collections, shared script collections, but not. We don't reuse the message mappings, because what we try to achieve is that each integration is really isolated from each other. So we try to minimize the reusage of the message mapping, so that we don't break one interface when we are touching another one. We have common functionality for sure, but not for the message mapping at the moment.
Thanks a lot. That's also very helpful. Yeah, if there are no questions right now, maybe it might also make sense to give a short glimpse of what we have today. Christoph, do you think it might be possible to give a short glimpse on maybe the integration we have there with cloud integration and delivery service? Continuous integration and delivery service, sorry.
Go ahead.
So I can say a couple of sentences regarding that. Just without slide deck, I think, and without demo today. But yes, as I said, we have like, I would say 1.5 years ago already, we have introduced a pipeline, a starting pipeline for flow development in our SAP BTP-based service, SAP Continuous Integration and Delivery. You know, when we were discussing this internally, we had to work around, of course, this the missing link, because as you might know, CI/CD tooling usually gets triggered from a Git, also from a change from a user, from a developer, and then pipelines are running automatically. The pipeline we're currently offering is able to fetch a flow, a single flow from the design time, and upload it to a runtime. So that's rather very simplistic flow that we wanted to get out to collect some feedback, to see usage patterns from customers and engage in discussions. Currently, discussions are ongoing, like what kind of validation need to be happen within those pipelines. So CI/CD is all about telling developers whether things still work. So you want to have maybe some static code checks. You want to have automated tests executed. What we have currently is a very simple smoke test. So you can call an endpoint in your flow and check for a message to come back. That's just very basic. But yeah, as Boris said, we're very open to engage in discussions how to improve that, how to add more functionality to that. We've heard customers, with monorepo approaches. We've seen various approaches to do validation, so very different tools. Also, customer use cases seem to be very different, rather development focused. So also using development tooling, expecting development processes. Others with a more lightweight approach. So really happy to engage in any discussion here to move that forward. Also in the service, and really my respect for Ferring to make this to make these effort on a Jenkins. This is all handcrafted. I know what it means to run this. It's not. It has to run all the time to maintain the Jenkins, to maintain those pipelines, to do support for the colleagues who are using that. So that's a remarkable achievement. So yeah, hats off.
I can only second that, right? I mean, thanks a lot also for sharing that. Christoph, to complement to what you said, I mean, there was also some feedback shared in the chat. Thanks a lot for that. One was if SAP enhances the continuous integration delivery service, that it's considered very helpful in setting up a landscape. You can also expect there are a lot of upcoming improvements. Recently, the colleagues just enabled here more an option to have more flexibility there with some options there to also add scripts and so on as part of the pre-configured pipelines.
Mm-hmm.
And you can expect a lot of improvements throughout the year. That's something. Then feedback on Project Piper and also some requests we can take with us. Thanks a lot for bringing it up. But I also wanted to involve Ferring again into this discussion in terms of requirements. So Ricardo and Nuno, I mean, you now made that experience, right? And there are also some requirements or expectations towards SAP, right, that might help you in the long run. Is there something you want to share here also as part of the community call in that direction?
Just want to highlight two key points in my eyes. So the first one is in regards to the CI/CD service. Christoph, I think you're mentioning that you do it on an iFlow per iFlow basis. And I think as companies start to scale up and having really a huge number of interfaces, I think that it should be kind of self-governed in a way. So it should be kind of an automated process that run behind, and we don't need to have someone looking into it and configuring it for every new iFlow that you create, because it will require some effort on that matter. Another thing, I think it goes a bit on the productization of what we have, let's say it. So I see something like reference models, like you have the S-Flight on S4, for instance, which is like pre-delivered content that can then help to ramp up the customers and can give like an example, a suitable example that the customers can then change and adapt to their own needs. But it would maybe help establishing the first connection into it. And finally, another point that I think it would be helpful for the productization of it would be to create some kind of a Docker image around it that companies can then incorporate into their own solution, like Kim or any other Kubernetes or whatever. So I think on that is what I can add. Do you have anything as well to share, Ricardo? Or
no, I think you covered pretty much all. Of course, we're looking for something standardized, more out of the box. I guess that's coming, as Christoph shared with us. So we are, waiting and keen to see what's SAP bringing up soon in regards of CI/CD. And once again, thank you all.
No, we really have to thank you also for that input, and we are very keen on continuing to working with you on that scenario, right, to improving what we have based also on your experience. And that's of course, again, an open call also to other customers that are interested in that scenario. Please share your expectations and requirements with us. And yeah, we are very welcoming that input. I see we already reached the top of the hour, so I don't see additional questions in the chat. With that, I really want again to thank Ferring for their great support, for their contribution to the SAP community, for having this call. This is really highly appreciated. Thanks a lot also to all the colleagues here from SAP for joining the call. And Moshe, to you, of course, for organizing it and for having us. With that, thanks a lot, and over to you, Moshe.
Thanks a lot for a great SAP community call. The recording will be available shortly after the call on our YouTube channel. So thanks again, everyone, for joining, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Likewise.
Have a great day. Bye.